Description highly irritating. Helped 1,000 deaf people here. Built wells in Africa. Likeable? Question mark? I don't get.
In these troubled times of climate catastrophe, billionaires consuming all the wealth and resources on the planet, and a lukewarm Taylor Swift album reception, one constant that we can all take solace in is how much the right hates one another. Despite having complete and total power in the United States and Argentina, the far right have never been more miserable.
I actually am impressed that the Catholics are actually getting nicer. I mean, I actually like Matt, which is as opposed to these guys, and it is getting to be. It's like the Vatican except for straight people. It's so it's really it's really exciting.
There's the clip.
Unable to pretend that they're the punk rock maverick outsiders trying to take down the deep state, they instead control every aspect of it, and are swamp maxing the nation straight into the empire toilet. And despite stacking the courts,
I still like beer.
concentrating on the unable to pretend
The Catholics are
Argentina, the far right have never been more miserable.
I actually am impressed that the Catholics are actually getting nicer. I mean, I actually like Matt, which is as opposed to these guys, and it is getting to be. It's like the Vatican except for straight people. It's so it's really it's really exciting.
There's the clip.
Unable to pretend that they're the punk rock maverick outsiders trying to take down the deep state, they instead control every aspect of it, and are swamp maxing the nation straight into the empire toilet. And despite stacking the courts,
I still like beer.
concentrating all the money for the wealthiest elites in the country, handing over total control to the tech industry to crash the economy on worthless AI slot machines, waging a war on every single citizen who isn't translucent enough for their liking, and bombing any Venezuelan sailor who has the audacity to try and fish off their own coast, they're utterly miserable. You'd think rounding up tens of thousands of black and brown people to throw in concentration camps would fill some sort of erectile dysfunctional hole in Stephen Miller's heart. But alas, even the pedophile rapist president tearing down the White House to build his bourgeois bunker while starving millions of kids to death doesn't seem to be making him happy.
You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych it.
A twisted tale of a King Midas with the ability to turn everything he touched into monkey paws that grant racist wishes, destroying the entire planet while feeling absolutely nothing. But what, pray tell, is making them so miserable? Stephen Miller is getting to act out the most fascistic fantasies since Adolf Hitler challenged John McAfee to a shit-eating contest in hell. You see, while they love to brag that the majority of America, and by proxy the world, signed off on all this, only about 1/3 of the country voted for him. Of those voters, some were, yes, die-hard MAGA cultists who seem fine watching their healthcare costs skyrocket and food prices become so obscene that potatoes and rice is a night out, as long as minorities suffer and children are ripped from their mother's arms. Yet there were also people completely fed up with the liberal status quo that promised way more than it delivered. There were some who simply rolled the dice, because if one of the two options wasn't delivering for their families, then maybe the other would. But most importantly, 1/3 of the country didn't bother to show up at all. In terms of the far right, the alt-right, the neo-reactionaries, the white supremacists, and the full-blown Nazis, they who will never know the touch of a woman that isn't their mother, well, they were all in for Trump. And therein lies the problem. You see, the fascist project that people like Ben Shapiro were more than happy to open the big tent poles for, we're never going to be satisfied at just hating the gays.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing.
Not what are you fucking your brother?
No!
What? Oh, I like it when you're rough with me, pretty lady.
Nazis were never known for putting cap limits on their hatred. For you see, fascists at their core are deeply perversely and freakishly insecure people. The very notion that races exist, or that there should be a master one that dominates all others, is so fundamentally unscientific and sad that it will inevitably lead to weird freaks seeking to destroy all love on Earth, for at their core, they have none. Which brings us to the closeted booger-eating, cum-hunting, anthropomorphized pubic brush of the Fuhrer himself, Nick Fuentes, the leader of the modern neo-Nazi white supremacist movement known as the Groypers.
We love Hitler, not in a fucking gay way, okay? We love Hitler in a Christian way, you freak, not in a gay way.
For years, he had been relegated to persona shit stana amongst the right For his overt disgust and hatred for all women, his endless praise of Hitler, his hatred of Jewish, Black, Indigenous, and ironically Hispanic people, an unapologetic mission to send the modern American conservative movement back to a reverse birth of a nation. Banned from most social media platforms, Nick Fuentes had to grow his empire on his own proprietary streaming platform called Cozy TV. From the studio built directly in his mother's basement, he streamed a regular show too racist and homophobic for mainstream internet. An unabashed white supremacist who established the America First movement as a white identitarian Christian nationalist project, appealing to mostly teenagers pulled in by his brand of offensive humor and a sales pitch of superiority.
So the more that I read that, I'm just translating it in my head as real nigga. When people say white nationalist, racist, anti-Semite Nick Fuentes, I'm just reading badass motherfucker. I'm just reading real ass nigga.
Often targeting real-world issues that plague men, such as difficulty meeting or making friends, attracting women.
Those that pretend to be the most tough or the most masculine, they've got their dumb bitch wife right behind them in their ear. And we both know that guy is never going to punch her in the face. He's never going to kill her. It's just like the woman knows that's not even in the cards. It's not in the deck, okay? She's going to open up that pack of cards and it's not in there. 0% chance, okay? It's never going to happen. He's never going to cheat. There's no rape. There's no, in other words, there's no actually male power coming from the man.
He added the unique angle of an intrinsic birthright that young Christian men once had that had been taken away from them through feminism, homosexuality, Jewish control of the media and politics, and good old-fashioned Satanism.
Because, of course, we believe that these things like transgenderism and homosexuality and feminism and usury and liberalism itself, these things are sinful. These things are wrong. Democracy is wrong. Feminism is wrong. Contraceptives are wrong. If you want to be right with God, you must oppose all this stuff.
Rome has fallen, and once the master race has been relegated to cuck soy boys who are addicted to porn and are castrated for their white and male privilege. It's a similar sales pitch to other insecure weirdos like Andrew Tate and Sneeko. The difference being the Hitler particles are now ramped up to 11, and everything is doused in a heavy dose of shitposting, irony, and internet memes. An army of Pepe frogs who call themselves the Groypers and attack the mainstream conservative movement just as much as they do liberals or the left, all for being too woke and gay.
You know, Charlie Kirk in the grand scheme of things is just some retarded idiot. It's because Charlie Kirk is a fake patriot, a fake Christian, and he hates his people. He's anti-white. This is our angle.
Which is wild considering the overwhelming amount of evidence that Fuentes himself is so deep in the closet, he's halfway to Narnia.
I'm gonna rip my dick out.
For starters, he's the self-proclaimed king of the incels, or involuntary celibates, an online movement of unwilling virgins who have had their rightful ability to mate with women taken away from them by feminism. It's not their fault they're lonely or single. It's a combination of the feminist movement giving women too much power and the attractive ones called Stacy's, all picking the popular muscle-bound jocks called Chads. Through hypergamy, a real term used in social sciences but rebranded by people like Jordan Peterson into a conspiracy theory that women control the gene pool through selective mating.
Right. Women are hypergamous, which means they mate across and up dominance hierarchies. And so if you're a male who's successful in a given hierarchy, the probability that you're going to have additional mating opportunities is exceptionally high. It's an unbelievably good predictor of that. Whatever. That's it, diverged.
Funny thing is, then explain why there's so many low-income families with lots of kids. Oh, that's right. Jordan Peterson is a fucking moron. I forgot. He's an absolute moron.
Imagine building dozens of transformational warships only to discover they transform mostly into headaches. That's the Littoral Combat Ship story, a promise of swap-in missions, tiny crews, and high-speed dash, undone by fragile machinery, cancel capabilities, and early retirements that read like apologies. It wasn't just teething problems, it was a design philosophy that asked small ships to do big jobs cheaply and indefinitely. The result? A fleet the Navy is trimming even as new hulls arrive, with the few that prove their worth quietly reassigned to the one job that they can still do well. If there's a silver lining, it's this. The brass have learned the next act is not another science project, but a back-to-basics frigate, the Constellation class, built to fight, last, and actually show up when the shooting starts. And just how exactly did we get from glossy brochure to strategic retreat? Well, let's find out. Today's video is brought to you by our friends over at Squarespace, the website platform that makes building an online presence feel like less of a chore and, more like something that you'll actually finish, which is nice, isn't it? Look, I use Squarespace to build my own personal website back maybe 5 years ago with Squarespace, and it at the turn of the millennium, the strategic planners of the US Navy were giving thought to the future and confronting a most uncomfortable thought.
I'm sorry, I just have to look at Emma Thornton for a second.
Maybe you'll think I'm overreacting, but I find the YouTube description highly irritating. Held 1,000 deaf people here, built wells in Africa. Likeable?
She's refreshing.
Question mark? I don't get it personally, but I'm not 11. But he specified at that time that the team used AI within the workflow, including for thumbnail creation. Which I am so relieved to know for a fact, because I have looked at Mr. Beast thumbnails before and been like, that's not Jimmy Donaldson. That's like a different guy. Obviously, people have been calling out the hypocrisy in these warnings and concerns because he is actively feeding the beast. So as far as I could tell, a temporary Mr. Beast theme park sort of sprung up overnight, and it sprung up in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Today's video is sponsored by Ground News. If you've been here before, you'll probably already be familiar with Ground News as the news platform, which gathers sources on stories from all over the world so that you can compare how different outlets cover the same story. Unlike pretty much any other platform you might be using to source your news, Ground News does not let you be controlled by any sneaky algorithms. Not only that, but it also shows you the ownership video. Hello lovely people, my name is Emma, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Do you know how many times I've had to work hard not to make a video about Mr. Beast? Like twice. Only once that I really properly thought about, but still. Mr. Beast working with Saudi Arabia as part of their entertainment plan to gloss over their consistent human rights violations was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I am the camel. Many of you may be asking, who is Mr. Beast? Probably actually most of you, because I think Mr. Beast and I have generally opposite demographics. The largest percentage of my viewers by age is 25 to 34, followed by 35 to 44. The main audience by age for Mr. Beast, last I checked, which was just a couple of days ago for this video, was 11 to 23. I would estimate, in general, there is probably about a 0% crossover between regular viewers of my channel and people who watch Mr. Beast. So this is Mr. Beast's homepage. Homepage? I'm not that old. It's Mr. Beast's YouTube channel. As of day of recording, Mr. Beast has 452 million subscribers. The latest video is World's Fastest Man versus Robot, and that's kind of indicative of the general channel content. It sort of started off, or at least as far as when I became aware of Mr. Beast, the main content that was popular was more philanthropic style content that sort of bled into more game show competition style content. You might recognize the thumbnails, rightly or wrongly, because the Mr. Beast style is so popular that lots of people tried to imitate his thumbnails. It's generally like a big face in the foreground being like, you know, something like that. Something normal like that. So this face that you see here is Jimmy Donaldson, 27 years old. One of those young folks that got super rich and famous super quickly, which I generally don't think is pretty much ever a good thing for anyone. 100 people versus world's biggest trap? I don't know what that means. I saved 1,000 animals from dying. 100 kids versus world's strongest man. Would you risk dying for $500,000? We're going to talk about controversies in a little bit, but just because that's there, I'll just share this with you. That video, Would You Risk Dying for $500,000, got a lot of backlash. The premise of the video was a man having to escape from a burning building and getting $500,000 for, I don't know, it seems like you'd either die or you get $500,000 based on the title concept. I don't understand it personally.
Have you ever wondered what it might be like to live in Night City from Cyberpunk 2077? Class person would live. And Night City has the perfect option. Mega buildings. You probably noticed these huge...
what if their hulking destroyers and cruisers, then the mainstay of the fleet, just weren't the right vessels for the next war? The Pentagon's 2001 Quadrennial Defense Review laid it out in black and white. The Navy needed ships that could slip into the shadows, fight swarming speedboats, sniff out submarines hiding in the littorals, and sweep mines from the sea lanes. Put simply, the Blue Water Fleet had to find a way to fight brown water wars. Enter the Littoral Combat Ship, or LCS as we'll call it herein, a supposed revolution in naval warfare that was going to do all of that very happily indeed. Admiral Vern Clark, then Chief of Naval Operations, sold it with evangelical zeal. His vision, called Sea Power 21, was all about speed, agility, and a new buzzword for the era: modularity. Basically, instead of having one big multi-role warship, you'd get a core C-frame that could swap out plug-and-play mission packages, most of the utility but in a fraction of the size. One week it could be hunting mines, the next it could be chasing subs, the next blasting pirate skiffs, and so on and so forth. And on paper, it sounded brilliant. In glossy brochures and contractor pitches, the ships were sold as being impossibly fast, topping 40 knots, nigh unheard of for a normal surface combatant, with such speeds at all normally being the preserve of hyper-specialized hovercrafts and hydrofoils. Their shallow draft would also mean that they could enter shallow harbors and navigate depthless rivers, the kind that even a somewhat modestly sized Burke-class destroyer couldn't even think about tackling. Their crew would be tiny too, a mere 40 to 50 sailors in all, who would be more than capable of operating the ship thanks to a near sci-fi level of automation. Their deployments were to be similarly radical too. You know, the normal way of doing things where a sailor is posted to a ship for an extended period of time and that's kind of it? Well, the LCS was going to use a revolutionary new concept, the 3-2-1 crewing model, which would mean that 3 rotating crews would operate 2 LCS ships, keeping one continuously deployed for 16-month rotations. In theory, this meant that the Navy could keep more hulls at sea, 50% at any one time by period estimations, and use fewer sailors while doing it, squeezing maximum fleet presence out of a finite budget. Every ambition has its skeptics though, and the LCS absolutely was no different. For example, as early as 2001, one Lieutenant John Baggett, in his naval postgraduate school thesis titled Logistical Analysis of the Littoral Combat Ship, LCS, operating independently in the Pacific, was warning that the whole idea might be running ahead of the hard physics of endurance and logistics. His spreadsheet suggested the sleek little C-frames would guzzle fuel like sports cars when pushed to high speed, and that the much-touted 1,500 nautical miles at sprint promise that was being thrown around back then was basically just a fantasy. Such warnings were ignored, however, and so the Navy plowed on ahead. 2 competing designs were ordered: Lockheed Martin's steel monohull Freedom class and Austal USA's all-aluminium Trimaran Independence class. Both looked futuristic and were supposed to be cheap and quick to build. So cheap and quick to build, in fact, that they were considered basically nearly disposable. The dream was a seductive one then. Small ships swarming the littorals, trading blows with pirates, submarines, and mines, while the carriers and destroyers stayed safely offshore. What a shame it was then that that dream turned into a whole massive nightmare. The build. But before we get into that, let's build some history. And it's nothing if not a swift history. The LCS program was only initiated on the 1st of November 2001 when the Navy announced that it was replacing the cancelled DD-21 destroyer project with a new future surface combatant program, a family of 3 ships: the DDX destroyer, later the Zumwalt class, the CGX cruiser, later cancelled, and of course, the LCS. And come May 2004, the money was already being put down and lights were being lit up green as both Lockheed Martin and Austal were told to get on with proper development. Outwardly, the Navy was actually being quite sensible too, because at this point, both the Independence and Freedom classes were only being taken to the prototype stage, 2 radically different visions that were to prove themselves at sea, with that which was judged the lesser of the 2 being culled and the winner then being pushed through to full serial production. As per a 2019 Congressional Research Service report from one Ronald O'Rourke, Lockheed Martin's Freedom class was the more conventional of the two. A semi-planing steel monohull with an aluminium superstructure, it looked like a sleeker cousin of the Navy's existing frigates. At 378 feet long with a width of 57 feet, it displaced around 3,400 tons and could push 47 knots thanks to a combined diesel and gas turbine plant. The design also emphasized compactness and high sprint speed, with its slimmer hull form meant to cut through the water like a speedboat. But that came with trade-offs: less deck space, tighter internal volume, and a propulsion system that demanded complex gearing to juggle between turbines and diesels. Austal's Independence class, by contrast, looked modern, to say the least. A 418-foot long, all-aluminium trimaran, it spread its weight across 3 slender hulls, giving it a massive 104-foot width. That also created an enormous flight deck, the largest ever put on a US non-aircraft carrier surface combatant, in fact, and a cavernous mission bay beneath for vehicles, containers, or unmanned systems. The trimaran hull also offered stability at high speeds and in rough seas, but the aluminium construction, soft and squishy as it is when compared to steel, raised questions about survivability, especially under fire. Top speed, however, was down as compared to a Freedom class, with an Independence maxing out at 44 knots. So, which design...
So, they go to build a high-speed, multi-purpose ship and end up with something that maxes out at slower speeds and has less use than the already existing ships. Wow.
Design ended up emerging as the victor? You no doubt want to know, and the answer to that is yes. The first Freedom class, a class leader of the same name, was launched in 2006 and commissioned in 2008, with the first Independence class, again a class leader of the same name, came a while later, not being launched until 2008, and finally...
I think that one right there is the one that lots of people refer to as the boat that don't float.
Getting commissioned in 2010. Both were delivered late, and both had plenty of gremlins in their systems. But worst of all, both were way over budget, with the Government Accountability Office stating that early ships of both classes came in at around the $500 million kind of mark, and that's in then dollars, not today's dollars, and that was compared to an original estimate of around $220 million each. Oh, and those figures also don't include the cost of procuring those fancy mission modules either. It's a little bit expensive. So why did the Navy then keep building them? Well, in 3 words: politics, jobs, and momentum. Technically 4 words if you count the "and" there, George, who wrote today's script. Basically, instead of picking a winner, as had been the original plan, the politicians leaned on the service to keep both variants alive. That meant doubling the overhead, 2 different training pipelines, 2 different supply chains, 2 different logistics tails. Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama, never shy about scoring a win for his home state, which built the Independence, was instrumental in pushing the so-called dual-buy arrangement that would ensure work was sent his constituents' way. And as journalist Megan Rose of ProPublica later reported, what started as a contest between 2 shipyards thus became a permanent compromise, one that guaranteed twice as many contracts, but twice as many headaches. And in the same spirit, they also committed far too quickly. The first block buy contracts were awarded in 2010 for 20 ships, 10 of each class. That locked in billions of dollars before a single LCS had even proven itself operational.
Committed to building
By 2015,
ships.
then Defense Secretary Ash Carter saw sense and had the program capped at 40 hulls, down from the original plan for 55. But even that proved optimistic. When all was said and done, and the final tallies were made, 35 LCSs were authorized in all, still far more than many felt was wise. They ended up being split roughly evenly, 17 Freedoms and 18 Independences, and the last ships are only just trickling into service now, almost 2 decades after the program began, with the final ship, Pierre, an Independence variant, having launched in August 2024 and still awaiting her commissioning. Billions spent, decades invested, and all for a fleet of ships that were meant to redefine littoral warfare, but ended up being written off as total failures. The reality. And now we get to the crux of
Nobody
the matter,
wants
because
them, but they built them
why
anyway.
were they such failures exactly? Well, cost, as we have already seen, was certainly a part of it, but there's far more to it than just that, because it ain't like the US military is averse to a cost overrun so long as whatever soaked up all of that capital delivers some really, really good results. The LCS, however, didn't even do that, because put simply, they just don't work. Their reliability is absolutely bloody atrocious. Take the Milwaukee, the third Freedom class build, for instance. She had been commissioned with pomp in November 2015, and then 3 weeks later, she was dead in the water off Virginia, crippled by a catastrophic combining gear failure, that being a bit of machinery that combines the output of the ship's gas turbines and its diesel engines, thus enabling those big speeds. As Megan Rose put it after interviewing Milwaukee's crew, quote, "If the Milwaukee were a brand new car, this would be the equivalent of stalling on its way out of the dealership. At least they could fix that problem, though. Surely. Sure, it would cost a few quid, but then at least they'd get a productive service line out of them, right?" Well, wrong, because as Admiral Mike Gilday, the Chief of Naval Operations, put in 2021 when speaking to the press, quoting him here, "The issue with the combining gear is probably the most challenging engineering problem that we've seen on any class of ship since I've been in the Navy." Specifics on why it was so challenging were given by Rear Admiral Casey Moten that same year, quoting him. "It's a complex mechanism in the gear itself, so just the forensics that had to be done by the team to determine where the failure occurred, specifically in the design why the failure occurred, to be confident that had been the root cause, to look at a modification to the gear that would prevent those root causes in the future, which is a difficult thing to do on an existing gear, and then to ensure that that fix allows full operation and allows the ship to do what it's supposed to do. That entire technical effort was complex," is the best word for it.
Yeah.
That dude speaks in one long sentence.
And I guarantee you the engineer on the ship turned around and said, "Well, seems to me the best thing to do would be to build something else entirely."
Despite claims to the contrary from Lockheed Martin, Milwaukee's combining gear issues were not a one-off and were not fixed in later vessels. Fort Worth's combining gear, for example, broke in Singapore in January 2016. Little Rock's broke on a maiden deployment in March 2020, and Detroit's broke in the Caribbean in November 2020. And that's just one problem on one of the classes. There's more still. For the Independences, their fancy water jet propulsion systems, which work by drawing in water and forcefully expelling it through a nozzle in the stern, turned out to be temperamental. For example, Canado's broke down outright during a 2016 Western Pacific cruise after repeated minor failures, and she was forced to limp back to Hawaii instead of showing the flag in Asia. Jackson's went the same year during a full-stop shock trial, never reaching the point of total failure, but repeatedly bringing her to a halt. Montgomery proved particularly unlucky, as on one single day in September 2016, during a shakedown, her water jets failed, and she had an engine fail. But going back to the Freedoms, because when their combining gears were chewing themselves to bit, the engines hooked up to them were also giving no end of problems. For example, Freedom herself suffered a total power loss in July 2013 during a Singapore deployment. She also lost her number 2 diesel engine in July 2016 after seawater somehow entered her lube oil system. Oh, and we can't forget the Independence's fragile hulls either, because they just love to crack and suffer corrosion. Montgomery, for example, had a minor collision with a tug in early October 2016, cracking a weld seam, and a couple of weeks later, she struck a lock in the Panama Canal, opening up an 18-inch crack. Independence herself was found to have severe galvanic corrosion around all 4 water jet channels in February 2011, and if you recall, she was only commissioned in 2010. 1 year. And just in case all of that wasn't bad enough, do you remember those mission modules, the supposed heart of the whole LCS concept that was meant to shrink the vessels down while compromising none of their capabilities? Well, color us surprised, but it turns out they weren't all that either, being both over budget and underwhelming. The anti-submarine warfare package, for example, arguably the most important of the lot, envisioned to put the willies of Chinese submarines, as it were, well, it never materialized. First, it was just an unmanned sonar drone aspect of it that was cancelled. That was in 2016, after hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D had already been sunk into it. And then, in 2021, the whole module was cancelled. As USNI News dryly put it, the LCS will never perform the ASW mission. Then there's the mine warfare modules. It had been intended to replace the Navy's 1980s vintage Avenger-class minesweepers, And in the end, it didn't. It relied on the remote mine hunting system centered on the 23-foot unmanned submersible WLD-1, but the Director, Operational Test and Evaluation, the Pentagon's testing office, found it so unreliable that the Navy cancelled it outright. A replacement, the Knifefish drone, only limped to initial operation capability in 2023. That's a decade late, by the way. In the meantime, as the Government Accountability Office noted in a 2022 report, the fleet's mine countermeasure gap simply went unfilled. The surface warfare package was the least disastrous, but that is a very, very low bar. It bolted on a pair of 30mm guns to supplement the built-in 57mm guns, plus a short-range Hellfire missile launcher to swat swarming speedboats. Useful in a fight with Iranian Revolutionary Guard skiffs, and, well, that's about it. Although, to be fair, that's all it had been intended to deal with. A long-range missile system, Netfires, have been intended to give some heavier punch, but that was cancelled in 2010. Only in 2019 did the package finally get Raytheon's Naval Strike Missile, finally giving it over-the-horizon capabilities. Now, we could go on, but you get the idea. Taken together.
So essentially, this big, like, $4 billion boat is a major threat to fishing boats, small fishing boats, sometimes.
The LCS was a tale of two designs and a single conclusion. Neither could deliver. The politics. Alright, so we skimmed the political aspect of the LCS disaster earlier when we were discussing
Land
the
helicopters
build,
on
but
them.
let's come back and look at it in a bit more depth, because actually there's way more going on in that regard than just one Alabama senator complicating things while trying to secure manufacturing jobs for his constituents. The loudest voice in Washington backing the whole scheme was Ray Mabus, Secretary of the Navy from 2009 to 2016. Mabus didn't just support the LCS, he championed it with a kind of evangelical zeal. He wanted numbers, a fleet that looked impressive on paper. Quantity has a quality all its own, was the mantra, and Mabus made sure to keep the littorals rolling down the slipways accordingly. He also waved off critics as nothing more than the Alumni Association, i.e. a bunch of old admirals who never liked anything new and were just incredibly stuck in their ways. At the christening of the Jackson in 2011, he even thundered that the LCS was, quote, a drug runner's worst nightmare, a submarine's worst nightmare, anyone who wants to do harm to the United States' worst nightmare. And while, sure, the true scale of the problems had yet to truly manifest, by that point, there was happily enough issues, looking at you, corroded independences, to discourage the making of such bold and brash statements. Inside the Navy, however, the mood was far darker. Far from having their heads shoved firmly up their backsides, as Mr. Mabus posited, the big hats were actually well aware of the issues. Rear Admiral Sam Perez, for example, wrote a classified memo in 2012 that tore the whole concept to shreds. The ships were too lightly armed, their crews overstretched, and the vaunted plug-and-play modules were just a logistical fantasy. His end conclusion was damning. The LCS could only realistically fight, quote, lightly armed, small, fast attack boats. Useful against pirates, maybe, but useless in a proper shooting war. The report never saw daylight, at least immediately, obviously. Or how else are we talking about it today? And for his honesty, Perez was moved sideways into a diplomatic job, and his criticisms were buried. He wasn't alone either. In 2013, Rear Admiral Tom Copeland produced a memo recommending that the Navy cap LCS production and get back to buying more surviving combatants. His office went on the offensive. Copeland, like Perez, soon found himself pushed aside, which for him took the form of early retirement. And then there's Lockheed Martin and Austral's role too, because they were very proactive in selling the merits of the LCS to the politicians. They spent millions lobbying Congress directly, making sure the LCS brand was always wrapped in stars and stripes. Washington metro stations were even plastered with glossy ads about the transformational little ships. Local newspapers in Alabama and Wisconsin dutifully ran stories about jobs created and families fed. Some people would call this corruption. Definitely not us, because Lockheed Martin's legal department terrifies us, and as a result, we think they're fantastic and have done literally nothing wrong, ever. Love you guys. That said, by the mid-2010s, the LCS didn't need to be actually seaworthy. It only needed to be politically seaworthy. It would take years before the prevailing attitude would sour, and oh boy, did it certainly sour. The retreat. When the first LCSs were delivered, they were meant to serve for 25 years. In reality, some didn't even make it to 10 because by the early 2020s, the Navy quietly admitted what many of its officers already knew and had been arguing for years. The LCS in either class simply could not fight and win in a near-peer war. With that admitted, the only thing left to decide was how quickly to cut its losses. And it turns out that that was pretty much immediately. Retrenchment began in 2021 when the Navy decommissioned both Freedom and Independence. Once hyped as the harbingers of a revolution, they were now cast aside and discarded after a mere 13 and 11 years of service, respectively. Not that they were scrapped, though. No. Instead, they were moved to the Reserve Fleet, a collection of ships that has the top secret stuff and particularly perishable systems stripped out and are kept in a preserved state so that they can be reactivated if the geopolitical situation suddenly turns a bit scary. They weren't the only two either, as in 2022, the Navy stunned lawmakers by proposing to retire 9 more Freedom classes, some of which were barely even half a decade old. The reasoning was blunt. As Admiral Gilday told Congress, fixing the class-wide combining gear defect, which we saw him discussing earlier, was simply not cost-effective. In other words, building new stuff that actually works would be cheaper than bringing the Freedoms up to par. That frankness, however, didn't spare the Navy a grilling. In a now famous Armed Services Committee session, Representative Jackie Speier held up a graphic showing the LCS fleet overlaid with bright yellow lemons. Quoting her, "We have a fleet of lemon LCS ships. We have spent billions of dollars on this fleet when they have no capability to help us deal with what our largest threat is, which is that of China and Russia. The only winners have been the contractors on which the Navy relies for sustaining these ships." End quote. Still though, despite the many issues that were now out in the open and being discussed, some hesitated, with some members of Congress in particular arguing that the ships could still be useful in lower threat theaters, pointing to missions like counter-narcotics patrols in the Caribbean, where, as an example, Sioux City had intercepted $500 million worth of drugs during operations with the Fourth Fleet. Some also suggested transferring the hulls to allies. Latin American navies, they argued, might welcome a ship with a big flight deck and a decent gun, even if the modules never worked. As Ronald O'Rourke pointed out in his 2019 report, foreign sales had always been floated as a way to soften the program's excesses from its very inception. There was some good rationale behind this notion too. To be fair, Saudi Arabia bought 4 multi-mission surface combatants, an export derivative of the Independence class in 2022 for some reason, so clearly there was some degree of foreign interest. Such notions were never going to save the LCSs though, because fundamentally the Navy wanted them gone, and increasingly with bad press just stacking up, they increasingly found political allies willing to aid them in delivering the coup de grace. As a result, today, as of the time of writing, 7 of the fleet of 35, 20% of the whole lot, has been decommissioned, and don't forget, there are new vessels still to be commissioned. And if you're wondering when the end will come, the LCSs will probably hang on in there in a much more diminished form until the 2040s. The Navy just wants the Freedoms gone, especially the earlier hulls, because, touch wood, it does appear as though from Minneapolis-St. Paul, the 11th unit built, they have finally fixed the combining gear issues. The 11th unit, guys. Jesus Christ. There's nothing set in stone, but analysts seem pretty unanimous in saying that those sorted Freedoms could reasonably stay in service until the mid to late 2030s. And that, as you've likely deduced, means that it'll be the Independence that hangs around into the 2040s. In no small part, this is because the Navy is tying them into their new mine countermeasures mission, which hit initial operating capability in 2023 and began deploying in 2025, and that operational need is a strong incentive to retain a core of them ships through the 2030s and possibly into the 2040s. Consistent with that, the Congressional Budget Officer's read of the Navy's latest 30-year plan shows the fleet holding around 25 LCS, mostly Independents in service until about 2041, then declining as retirements begin, a trajectory that matches the nominal life of type while still leaving room for earlier cuts if costs or priorities shift. Basically, expect the properly shit comedy ones that struggle to go 5 minutes without breaking to go in the next few years, and those that stand up to snuff will probably see out their full service life. The ship that the Navy doesn't want being crammed into a role that it can fill with its incredibly oversold spec sheet. And frankly, given the issues the LCS program had, that would not exactly be a dishonorable end to its story. So what's next after all this? Not another miracle fix or PowerPoint fantasy, that's for sure. It's going to be a proper, boring, old-school warship that actually does the job. the Constellation class. So careful are they, being in fact, that the Constellation isn't even a fresh-from-the-keel-up design, instead being based on the Franco-Italian FREM design, which is currently serving quite happily with the Italian, French, Moroccan and Egyptian navies, with Indonesia and Greece also being slated to get some soon enough. To cut a long story short, the US plans to take that proven hull and harden it to better suit their own needs. Heavier scantlings and shock survivability margins, an Aegis-derived combat system, Combat's 21, rather than something bespoke, and the SPY-6 V3 Enterprise air surveillance radar to tie it cleanly into the wider fleet picture. Weapons, similarly, are sensible and sufficient. 32 Mark 41 vertical launch system cells for SM-2 and RAM-162 type missions, 16 canister launch naval strike missiles for the over-the-horizon punch, a 57mm Mark 110 gun up front, plus a RAM-116 rolling airframe missile system for close-in defense. The Constellations will be getting a US-specific power plant too, a single General Electric LM2500 gas turbine. For performance, expect 26 knots in a sprint and a 6,000 nautical mile endurance at 16 knots. As for how many and when, the plan is deliberately incremental. The Navy began buying in the 2020 financial year, and come 2024, 6 ships were funded. All in all, as the time of writing, they're hoping for 20 when all is said and done. And that is the proper end of the LCS saga. Not absolution, but circumvention. The Navy is swapping a clever idea that never quite worked for a normal frigate that almost certainly will. Thank you for watching.
This is the birthplace of California, gorgeous San Diego. It's a thriving military city, housing Naval Base San Diego, Naval Base Point Loma, Naval Base Coronado. Also the Marine Corps Air Station Miramar and Marine Corps Camp Pendleton, just north of here. But today, WWE invades the home of the Major League Baseball San Diego Padres. This is Petco Park, sold out. Over 45,000 fans expected tonight for Survivor Series War Games. And our superstar arrivals tonight are presented by PlayStation. Experience the unimaginable, unexpected, and unforgettable moments that happen only PS5. Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, and AJ Lee prepare to go to war. They step inside the cage against this formidable team. The self-appointed captain, Becky Lynch, Nia Jax, Flash Legend, and the Kabuki Warriors. They're set for War Games tonight. On the right is Stephanie McCurr. She's the women's world champion, but she defends against the WWE Hall of Famer, Nikki Bella. Nikki looks to rekindle some magic tonight. And San Diego's own Dirty Dominic Mysterio in the biggest match of his life, the final premium live event match for the GOAT, John Cena. The Intercontinental Championship up for grabs tonight. You know, the baseball stadium, Petco Park, is a brilliant place with downtown San Diego providing these stunning visuals. Inside, you now hear the sirens blaring. It is time to head for shelter. A war is brewing inside 2 rings, surrounded by this massive cage. Let the War Games begin!
Down here, there's no noise. Just focus, precision, patience. Every image starts in the dark. And for a fraction of a second, a soul gets exposed. Some chase the shot. Others live inside it. Both expose the truth. Rage.
Nikki Bella wants the Women's World Championship.
Resolve.
Can Roman Reigns trust CM Punk and vice versa?
Revenge.
You want your rematch for the Intercontinental Championship? No problem.
Tonight, two teams step into fray.
These two teams will be locked inside the War Games cage.
Each fighting to define the same image. The face of a champion.
Let's do it! Scores will be settled. Bodies will be broken.
This is Survivor Series War Games.
Victory in this battle, there are bound to be casualties. It is time to go to war. You are looking live in the home of Major League Baseball's San Diego Padres. Tonight, over 45,000 fans will pack this joint, Petco Park, as we welcome you for the 39th time to Survivor Series War Games, presented by Riyadh Season and Xfinity.
The following is the Women's War Games match! One member of each team starts the match. After 5 minutes, a member of the advantage team will be released to enter the match. After a 3-minute period, alternating members from each team will enter the match until all competitors are inside the ring. Once all competitors have entered, War Games officially begins. Once War Games begins, if anyone leaves the cage, their team forfeits. The only way to win the match is by pinfall or submission. Introducing first, from the Queen City, Charlotte Flair!
Well, Charlotte Flair, who won the advantage last night in a match versus Asuka on Friday Night SmackDown, will actually start this War Games matchup for her team. Now, Charlotte is wearing gear tonight that is inspired by one of her best friends, 7-year-old Scarlett, who is battling DMG, which is a type of cancerous brain tumor. Charlotte Flair met this young lady there in 2024. She was a guest of Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, and she is here tonight to watch the Queen do battle inside of War Games. And Wade, in her career, Charlotte Flair is 1-0 in this event.
Yeah, it is a brave individual who dares step into War Games while timed up by 100 for the person on the team who elects themselves to step in there first. Rather Charlotte Flair than me, but it really tells you something about the tenacity and drive of the queen of this industry, Charlotte Flair.
Well, this match tonight is presented by the General Insurance. The General Insurance gives you a break when you need it most. No breaks, though, for anyone inside the War Games cage.
From Osaka, Japan, she is one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka!
Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka, who, as I mentioned earlier, lost the Advantage Games matchup last night against Charlotte Flair on Friday Night SmackDown. Happy Thanksgiving weekend, everyone. I'm Michael Cole. He's Wade Barrett. Wade, are you ready for Survivor Series?
Well, California knows how to party. WWE superstars know how to go to war. And thankfully for the same members around here, we know how to stay a safe distance. Yeah, I'm ready for this show.
Also here with us tonight, the Spanish announce team, none other than Marcelo Rodriguez and Jerry Soto. Hola.
Thank you, amigos. Hola. Aquí estamos, pocos juegos de guerra y 2 luchas titulares representando a la familia hispana con el mayor cariño del mundo. Bueno, estamos en la casa de los padres, esto va a estar muy padre y de vez en cuando vamos a decir, ¡ay, mi madre! Eso es lo que nos espera en Survivor Series.
One thing I do want to mention tonight, Wade, is that we do not have the normal shark cages that we've become familiar with, which each team member would be housed in before being released into this matchup. This time around, no one allowed into the arena until their number is called, adding a layer of intrigue to this match tonight. Charlotte and Asuka will start things off. Tremendous rivalry between these two women. I mentioned last night they were even going into last night's matchup in their career. Charlotte now with a slight edge in one-on-one matchups. Again, the match is not underway yet, not until all 10 women enter the fray. So what's the strategy now? 5 minutes to go between these two.
Well, the aim has got to be to do as much damage to your opponent's team as you possibly can before the match officially starts, when all 10 entrants are in the 2 rings. There is a lot of time to go until then, and obviously Charlotte's team do have a numerical advantage. That's going to kick in about 5 minutes' time, but right now it's one-on-one.
You notice 2 rings in this matchup. Of course, both will come into play. And Asuka now with those body shots and strikes to Charlotte Flair. For Asuka, she's 1-1 in War Games matchups. Has had success in Survivor Series back in 2017. She was a sole survivor for Team Raw.
Nobody is ready for Asuka, but clearly Asuka has been ready and raring to go for War Games, as has Charlotte Flair.
2015, a decade ago, marked the first time that Charlotte Flair appeared at Survivor Series. 2017, she actually knocked off a woman who's going to be a teammate in this match tonight, Wade, Alexa Bliss, here at this event.
Yeah, well, that is loose alliances here, there, and everywhere when it comes to War Games. But let's not forget, just a few short weeks ago, the Kabuki Warriors won tag gold against Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. So there's some real beef between these two superstars right now. The gold currently in possession of Asuka and her tag partner Kairi Sane.
And two of the most decorated superstars in the history of our sport starting this matchup off tonight. Charlotte Flair, a 14-time world champion. And Charlotte now, oh, look at Charlotte taking Asuka to task here.
Well, this is Charlotte really trying to play some mind games with Asuka, and nobody can play mind games quite like Charlotte Flair. Just establishing some dominance in the early goings here, ragdolling Asuka around the ring.
Kip up by Charlotte against the 4-time world champion Asuka, who uses the ropes to her advantage.
And I like these two superstars starting for their respective teams. Tremendous amount of experience, and they know how to duke it out in the deep waters. And when you start out first for your team, you are guaranteed to have to last a long time in this matchup and take a ton of abuse along the way.
You know, both of these women, former winners of the Royal Rumble. Charlotte has won that event twice. Tag team champions as well. Asuka, a former 5-time tag champ, the current tag team champion. She once held the tag titles with none other than Charlotte Flair.
Former friends, now major rivals, and I'll tell you right now where they're battling out between the two rings, that area of metal connecting the two rings, a massive weapon you can use to your advantage. And just great time in there from the Empress of Tomorrow.
And now they move into the ring closer to us here at the announce desk side, and Asuka now just taking her time. Now, Asuka, though, needs to damage Charlotte, because remember, Charlotte's team will have the advantage. The next woman into this matchup will be an ally of Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, the absolute best thing that Asuka can do right now is completely incapacitate Charlotte Flair for several minutes to at least make it a one-on-one matchup when one of Charlotte's partners next enters the ring.
Wait, what does it do to you psychologically when you start the matchup like these two women do, and then they realize that the match doesn't even really begin until all 10 women are in?
It is a feeling of dread that will wash over your soul, knowing that increasingly fresher superstars are going to start entering the fray and throwing offense in your direction. And remember, Charlotte Flair wasn't going to go for a pin there. There's no pins, there's no submissions at this point in the match. We're merely at the violence and abuse stage of the match before the bell really even rings.
Yeah, these two longtime rivals, Asuka and Charlotte Flair. Strike after strike. Asuka now taking control of Charlotte.
Just one way to exhaust yourself in the early goings as a strategy. I personally do not like it. You have to conserve something, but these two have such hatred for one another. They are coming out guns blazing.
Oh! A clothesline by Charlotte Flair taking Asuka out. Famous Flair chops ringing through Petco Park. Charlotte with a big knockdown of Asuka.
Asuka, of course, has launched numerous sneak attacks on the likes of Charlotte Flair over the past several months, and indeed several of her partners in this War Games matchup.
Charlotte was going for that fall-away slam, and Asuka was able to counter with a German suplex and then a kick to the face.
This sets both women are trying to establish some form of dominance here so they can slow things down, get themselves a breather, knowing full well what is coming their way over the next 30 or so minutes of this match.
On a matter of moments, Charlotte will get a break, and she'll have a friend join her as Asuka now, just under 20 seconds now before Charlotte has some reinforcements. And Asuka now takes the fight to the top rope and bounces Charlotte off the cage.
That could have been a crucial moment for Asuka, who now has a clear upper hand. Can she keep Charlotte down when reinforcements arrive imminently?
And it will be Io Sky who will join Charlotte Flair inside the War Games matchup. And this is interesting, Wade. Of course, Io Sky and Asuka, longtime friends, former tag team partners in Japan, have turned into bitter enemies as of late. And Io Sky gonna go toe-to-toe with Asuka.
Yeah, and I think you raise a really good point there. I think traditionally, you would expect Charlotte Flair's tag partner, Alexa Bliss, to be the next entrant, and they can have some tag team cohesion against Asuka. However, it is so heated between Io Sky and her former mentor, Asuka. Let's set Io loose.
And Io now with a garbage can lid. The first weapon introduced into this matchup. 3 minutes to go, and so Asuka will have some help out here. Io Sky has been in every single women's War Game match since the first one back in 2019. And Asuka able to block.
Beat too long. You cannot do that against Asuka, despite the fact that Asuka has been going 5 minutes of beatdown already in this match.
And now Io wowing the WWE fans, taking Asuka out of the knee, and now Io Sky. And I stand by this, and I say it every time she's in the ring, Wade. I believe pound for pound, the best wrestler on the planet today.
Certainly the highest risk superstar in the entire women's division. May serve you incredibly well in this match type.
And it's interesting to note that Charlotte Flair are just starting to come to after she went face first into the cage moments ago. Yeah, indeed.
Right to the temple, just KOing Charlotte. Slipping Io.
Yeah, but she
was recovery from Io Sky, slipping on that top rope and still managing to stick some offense.
Indeed, going from rope to rope. Got caught up a bit, but still able to capitalize.
Just effortless athleticism from the genius of the Sky, part of why she is so damn good.
And now Io into the corner, a little bullet train attack with the aid of that lid delivered to the face of Asuka. Io Sky, the former two-time world champion.
Let's take a look at this precision timing, precision impact, aided and abetted by that steel trash can lid.
Now Asuka set outside the ring. She avoided the cage. And Io now continues the assault on Asuka. Just so much bad blood between these two. It's a shame to see where this relationship went. They were so close over the years.
Well, Io was given an ultimatum by the Kabuki Warriors, led by Asuka. Either choose Rhea Ripley or us. You cannot choose both. Io chose Ripley, and Ripley, of course, is part of that War Game team.
There's a toe hold out of the metal plate there.
We talked about that a little earlier. Extra damage sustained on that metal plate. Face first into it goes Asuka.
Wait, this is one of those matches that, well, when you're done with it, you're never going to be the same. Your career's never going to be the same. You'll never forget the moments in this type of match.
Physically, mentally, and Asuka's in a real bad way, but thankfully for Asuka, a little backup is on its way.
We're going to be even at 2 apiece here.
The man has come around.
Well, the woman who is the self-appointed captain of this team, kendo stick in hand, the 7-time world champion, Becky Lynch, who is 2-0 in War Games.
The now former Intercontinental Champion, who has had a terrible past couple of months.
Yeah, I had a very interesting interview with Becky Lynch on that topic during the Countdown show today. She's a bit delusional.
It's only delusional if you can't back it up. And Becky Lynch has consistently throughout her career backed every word she's said on.
Yeah, no, you know, Becky Lynch, who's been out of control on social media as of late, attacking just about anyone who doesn't agree with her. And now taking the fight to Io Sky with a Russian leg sweep kendo stick in hand.
That's not the correct name. The correct name is Insufferable Io. And I got that off Becky Lynch's Twitter account.
Yeah, she called me misleading Michael. And
misinformation, Michael, I think we will crown you. But I'm Wonderful Wade here to counterbalance your nonsense.
Becky Lynch, who back at Survivor Series in 2021 beat Charlotte Flair in a classic matchup. And speaking of Charlotte, back in the fight, takes the kendo stick away from Becky.
That was fun.
That would be Charlotte and Flair, in the words of Becky Lynch.
2 of the original 4 horsewomen who really started, or I should say completed, what would be the women's evolution here in WWE a decade ago. So many great rivalries, including this one.
Broke glass ceilings together. Now they're going to break each other's jaws inside a War Games.
And Charlotte saying, come on, Becky. Becky Lynch, who a number of publications has called the greatest female wrestler of all time. Charlotte Flair has taken well, she doesn't like that. She believes that she should be in that category as Becky delivers a right, then an uppercut, and Lynch taking the fight to Flair.
And right now you see just how crucial the numbers game is in this. We're back to 2-on-2. And establishing dominance briefly was Becky Lynch and Asuka, however.
Yeah, a couple of Bexploders that time by Charlotte. And Becky as they stare each other down.
I mean, these two are going to be intrinsically linked throughout their entire career. Going back to FCW. Now getting a major upper hand here is the undoubted alpha woman of the female locker room, Charlotte Flair.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Becky reacts in this matchup mentally as well as physically because of what happened. Ooh! Taking Charlotte out at the knee. Back, of course, at Madison Square Garden, middle of November when she lost the Intercontinental title, of course, to Maxine. Thanks in part to a woman who's going to enter this matchup in a little bit, AJ Lee.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Becky Lynch had a major issue at WrestlePalooza against AJ Lee alongside her husband, CM Punk, in mixed tag with Seth Rollins involved too.
Everybody at home, say hi to them. Tell them who the greatest female wrestler of all time is. It's me, not you.
Oh, he's talking trash.
Could be commentary too. She's better than us.
With Charlotte and Io going to have an ally join the fray and give them a 3-on-2 advantage. Charlotte's tag team partner, the 5-time world champion who's 1-0 in this event, Alexa Bliss, on her way to the ring.
Bliss is motoring because her tag partner, Charlotte Flair, is getting splattered across our ringside area by Becky Lynch.
Not to mention, Asuka is splattering Io Sky, and Alexa goes right after Asuka.
Well, Asuka's trying to stop Alexa Bliss getting over to Charlotte. Charlotte's in a really bad way at the side of the ring here. There's fights going on all over the place.
Oh! So for the next 2 minutes and 45 seconds, Charlotte, Alexa, and Io Sky will have an advantage, but can they take advantage? Charlotte and Io are down and out.
That's just how effective it has been keeping Io Sky down, keeping Charlotte Flair down. But now Alexa Bliss may get the opportunity to finally add some firepower on behalf of Charlotte Flair.
Alexa Bliss marching her way toward Lynch. And look at Alexa go, rights and lefts to Becky.
Look at every inch the former 5-time world champion Alexa Bliss, one of the most perplexing individuals we have ever witnessed.
Yeah, she's a 4-time tag champ. One of those reigns with Charlotte, of course, and the other was with Asuka. Oh, and Charlotte and Alexa working together as a team. Oh, Asuka got caught, intercepted. Oh, nice dragon screw there that time by Bliss, taking down Asuka. And one to Becky Lynch as well.
This is exactly why you want your tag partner in there. Once upon a time, allies of convenience formed a
and how about this?
Nice!
Double natural selection. And again, not going for pinfalls or submissions. Match not official until all 10 women are in the match.
Which goes to show you how effective tag team chemistry can be in this kind of matchup. Multiple bodies, multiple threats. Put your tag team on a little run in there, just soften up the opposition.
Yeah, speaking of softening up, as you see Charlotte and Alexa unload, Io Sky trying to drag her way back into this matchup. Io has been taken out for a number of minutes now, but Io back into the fight.
Just nailing those Shote uppercuts, and now 3-on-2 really starts to take hold.
Remember, Charlotte was very reluctant to be a part of this team because of the presence of Rhea Ripley. Sit down a couple of weeks ago, mended fences, at least for tonight, between those two.
Yeah, all bets are off for one evening. Your enemy, as long as they're on your side, becomes your friend, becomes the only way you can survive War Games. And tomorrow's a very different day. Just hold things together for one evening.
Well, Charlotte made it clear, I'm out here for Alexa. And in 20 seconds, things will finally be even again at 3 women apiece. Asuka is going to have some help now with her partner, one half of the tag champs. Kairi Sane will even things up 3 women apiece, and she is bringing a chain with her to the ring.
And if I was Asuka, I'd be shouting, Kairi!
Yeah.
Because right now, Asuka and Becky Lynch are getting beaten down 3-on-2 to get a sprint on Kairi. Help is needed.
Kairi Sane slowly taking her time as she looks to punish her opponent inside the War Games structure.
Steel chain in hand, looking to do some maximum damage here.
Kairi begging for Alexa and Charlotte to come her way. She's wrapped the chain around her fist and now taking out Alexa and then Charlotte Flair.
That chain is like an extra partner, and did Kairi Sane need that at that point in time?
Not quite sure why she tossed it away, but nonetheless, she's in control with Charlotte.
Left on the floor, perhaps an opponent could pick that up if you're not careful, but now with the upper hand again is Kairi Sane. Threats everywhere you look inside that cage.
Now wrapping her fist and forearm and into the corner to Alexa Bliss, and that'll shatter your face.
Nice move by Kairi Sane, of course, the other half of the tag champs alongside Asuka. And these are the 2 women she took gold from.
Meanwhile, Io Sky in control of Asuka. Becky still down. Kairi Sane still taking the fight to Charlotte.
Well, a torturous hold to Charlotte Flair, slowly exhausting Charlotte Flair's, dropping Flair's defenses, and now looking at
Kairi launching herself with the chain wrap fist, and that chain has made a major difference in this match.
These are the smarts of Kairi Sane, was not sprinting, she knew she had the advantage in hand there, and now equalizing these numbers and decimating their opponents. Kabuki Warriors laser focused now on Io Sky, who they've had.
Oh no! Oh my goodness! About decapitated Io!
Just when Asuka was looking in major trouble, her tag partner saves the day.
Asuka with a missile drop kick to Io Sky. Just such bitter hatred from Asuka toward Io Sky, and I'm still not sure why. Ooh.
Well, the deal was very simple. You don't protect anyone else apart from our little group who we've climbed this industry with.
That's silly, but nonetheless, Asuka feels that way, and Kairi Sane has followed her in her footsteps. For a while, I believe that Kairi was just trying to make amends, and now she's bought into Asuka's vicious ways. And now, look at Charlotte's team tied up with the chain, being held by Becky. Kairi and Asuka now. Oh!
Completely defenseless, arms trapped by their side. And this is now looking like dominance. And with neutral numbers, they've dropped the 3 on the other team. I would not want to be competitor 4, who's coming out imminently, having to step into this mess.
What an incredible sight here tonight at Petco Park, beautiful stadium, home of the Padres here in San Diego. Beautiful, cool, crisp evening as we await the next member of Charlotte's team. AJ Lee, a woman who once held the championship for 405 days, and a very desperate Becky Lynch trying to keep the door shut. So AJ Lee, who cost her the Intercontinental title, who cost her a match at WrestlePalooza, doesn't want AJ in this match.
Becky Lynch wants to maintain the neutral numbers in there. It's 3-on-3. AJ Lee's entrance will ruin that. That is why the door is being kept shut. But AJ Lee has other ideas.
Yeah, scaling the cage like Spider-Man. AJ Lee heading up top. And AJ Lee making her way into War Games as Kairi and Asuka try to prevent her from getting into the mix. So wait, if you're AJ Lee and this is your first War Games matchup, and there's a crossbody, is this an advantage because you don't quite know what you're expecting?
Well, it's not an advantage with your teammates all wiped out. It was supposed to be 4-on-3, but AJ is slowly dropping bodies, and now we're down to one-on-one, and Becky Lynch looks petrified.
Yeah, Becky Lynch had a lot of disparaging things to say about AJ Lee recently. And AJ now taking the fight to Lynch.
AJ Lee simply sees Becky Lynch as a bully, arrogant, and somebody who needs taking down a peg or two, and that is one way to do it.
Remember AJ Lee back at WrestlePalooza? It was her first match in a decade, and now she's in War Games tonight.
Is the woman who was the spark that started that inferno that was the women's revolution. Becky Lynch doesn't see it that way. Becky Lynch claims all the credit for herself. Well, AJ Lee far from impressed with that attitude.
Using the cage as a weapon, a shining wizard by AJ Lee, which is one of her trademark moves.
Like a knee right to the nose there of Becky Lynch, a nose that has been plastered across her face.
And Kyrie now from behind. And now walking the plank is Kyrie Sane. Everyone's down here except for Kyrie.
The walk of the planker is that mocking AJ Lee's little skip maneuver. That might come back to bite you if you're not careful, Kyrie Sane.
Perhaps a combination of both. As AJ delivers the elbow, and now AJ Lee with a drop kick.
Simply too much left in the tank of AJ Lee to start the mockery this early, but this may be interesting.
Yeah, Asuka and AJ Lee.
Two women I don't think have ever locked up before, but this is what you call one of those dream matches, Michael Cole.
Yeah, Asuka and AJ Lee missed each other by just a few months here in WWE. Oh, and Becky from behind. Asuka doing a great job with the distraction, and now the 3-on-1 attack on AJ Lee.
Just been a mugging in there of AJ Lee. And how smart has it been of Becky and the Kabuki Warriors to neutralize that temporary numbers advantage that the other side currently has? They barely made use of it, although that may be changing before our eyes.
Yeah, Charlotte gets back in the mix. Io Sky as well. Things will be even again at 4 apiece here in a matter of moments.
You can just tell exhaustion really is starting to kick in now. Test of your endurance, test of your will to win, test of your drive. But who is coming in now?
Oh, the complexion of this match just changed. The irresistible force. Nia Jax marching to the War Games match for the second time in her career.
As formidable a foe as you could possibly imagine, possesses zero physical weaknesses at all. Get ready for carnage.
Yeah, earlier this month, Nia Jax beat Charlotte Flair in a match on SmackDown. The two-time world champion was a sole survivor when she eliminated Asuka at Survivor Series back in 2018. And now she looks to dominate yet again.
Well, Nia Jax had a major influencing factor alongside new tag partner Lash Legend when it came to Flair and Bliss losing Fat Gold. Recently serving as a major distraction, aiding the Kabuki. And the damage Nia Jax can cause is now being exacerbated by that cage.
The aforementioned Lash Legend will join this matchup in just a bit. Now Io Sky caught by Jax, and Nia Jax just dominating, powerful, and a straight right.
Sky just went for that wheelbarrow attack, tried to use some momentum, simply not enough against the powerful Nia Jax.
And now just mocking Io Sky. Nia is just a game changer, right, Wade?
100%. And Io Sky, she climbs out of that cage. Maybe going up top, but launch an aerial assault on her opponents here.
Indeed, it's not a normal cage match, of course. No escapes. And now Io Sky climbing to the top. Nia Jax gonna drag Io down. Io in trouble up there. Nia Jax now. Oh, just planting Sky.
Women have to team up to stop Nia Jax. The problem is all of the opponents are completely laid out. And this is just turning into a walk in the park for Nia Jax.
And Nia Jax, Becky Lynch, Asuka, Kairi Sane, all on their feet. Charlotte's team is down. Nia Jax, like she needs another weapon. Now is the steel chain in hand.
Hey, this is War Games. Things can change in an instant. If you've got an opportunity to take an advantage, even if you are Nia Jax and you've been blessed with every advantage, you take it.
Now Asuka and company just wearing down their opponents. And remember, the match has not yet officially started. Two more women to enter, Rhea and Lash.
Dangerously close to all 10 women being in there. Just 2 entrants left. We're tied up 4-on-4.
Now look at Asuka.
For the business end of the match, and things are looking so good for Asuka et al. When it comes to the dominance they've managed to establish here, despite not having that War Games advantage.
And look at using the chain. And Alexa's team will have the advantage in 15 seconds as Rhea Ripley will join the fray.
Doesn't look like it's going to be an advantage. It may be numerical, but all their partners are laid out already.
I know that's easier said than done, but if anyone can do it, it's the Fun Boss. His stamina is getting tested. That's the kind of offense that opens people's eyes to the rock. Moving into the ring.
Well, Rhea Ripley, the Eradicator, is about to go to war. I spoke to Rhea earlier today. She said she had something special heading into this matchup tonight.
Superstars are seeing red right now, gentlemen.
The mask and outfit of Rhea Ripley is inspired by the movie series Terrifier and Art the Clown.
I'll tell you right now, Cole, if that trash bag over her shoulder is anything like Art the Clown, it is full to bursting with a variety of weapons that will soon be entering the War Games cage.
Rhea Ripley entering the War Games cage for the 5th time in her career. She was a part of the very first women's War Game match back in 2019.
Oh, this is some terrifying energy to be tapping into. The game is about to change inside a War Game.
And not only is that a mask, Wade, but it's also protective for Rhea Ripley, who missed a month of action. So the broken nose as she delivers the trash can in the face of Nia Jax.
They will have a broken nose of her own after that impact, and Becky Lynch once again wide-eyed and terrifying.
We talked about Nia Jax changing the complexion of this matchup. Rhea Ripley does the same.
The Rock has this wrapped up.
Something a bit more intimidating, isn't it? A kendo stick wrapped in black.
It's over.
Combined with the fact that it's wielded by a terrifying looking
Let's take another look at these guys in action.
Like Rhea Bloody Ripley.
Rhea ducks underneath, delivers a clothesline now to Becky Lynch. And Rhea yet another one. And the 3-time world champion cruising here.
Here is your winner.
Rhea Bloody Ripley may be the biggest wrestling star on planet Earth right now. Just a major crossover star. Even people who don't watch wrestling know exactly who Rhea Bloody Ripley is.
And now going right after Asuka.
According to the books,
Now
it's two
between the rings now. Right now, Rhea's team has a 5-on-4 advantage. Lash Legend will enter the matchup last, and then it will begin officially as Rhea comes off the top rope with a patented missile drop kick.
One way to equalize the threat of Nia Jax. Meet fire with fire. And that is the stuff that nightmares are made of, especially if you're a Kabuki warrior.
Rhea just so dominating, so intimidating, so powerful. And now the best of friends, Rhea and Io.
Got together recently at Crown Jewel against the Kabuki Warriors. Were victorious there in Rhea Ripley's homeland of Australia.
Yeah, who knows what would have happened to Io Sky over the past couple of months if it wasn't for Rhea Ripley. And now Io.
No one gets the crowd.
What is it about Io Sky and trash cans inside of War Games?
The following is a tag team match set for one fall. On the way to the ring, at a combined weight.
How about that? Crushing the trash can.
Well, you're supposed to be exhausted at this point of the match, but Io Sky just felt a little different.
Look at these guys. I think
And as Rhea and Io prematurely celebrated, Nia Jax stopped them in their tracks.
Any permanent lingering threat inside a war game. Celebration should be saved until the fight is over.
Alexa Bliss with that tornado DDT to Nia Jax. And we're going to be 5-on-5. The match is going to officially begin in less than 15 seconds.
At a combined weight.
All 9 women completely laid out here. One fresh woman about to make her way down.
The moment this match was announced, the WWE Universe has expected a classic. I think it is destined to deliver.
She is the powerhouse in her first match as an official member of the Friday Night SmackDown roster. Lash Legend. She had a very interesting interview in The Takedown on SI this week. She talked about her mantra being keep grinding, bring something special. It's my first match, and I'm going to show my dominance tonight.
Former WNBA star. This is a woman I've watched her career from the very beginning in this industry in NXT. And from day one, you just knew this woman was destined to be something very, very special. Long-legged Lash Legend, the Bougie Bully has arrived.
Go on, get it, girl. You deserve it.
A heavy double axe handle. Those two are in such a cohesive rhythm out there.
It's like playing jazz, but using your opponent as the drum.
Let the war
And the shoulders up in time. Yeah, this early, no chance.
Match
Block the
underway.
effort and cut them off with a
First
shot
team to
the
pick up
gut.
pinfall or submission will win War Games. Interesting, the referee now in the ring. None other than Jessica Carr, who's had major issues with Becky Lynch in recent weeks. Becky calls her Wicked Carr.
Carr herself with no count involved tonight, thankfully, for Becky Lynch. Although the Bougie Bully Lash Legend immediately dropping the hammer.
Oh, the way there could be. I mean, if Becky Lynch is pinned, Jessica Carr would count the 1, 2, 3, right?
A count out that was the major issue with Jessica Carr, but we may not get that far because Lash Legend may be about to end this thing.
And look at Lash now, just ragdolling Alexa Bliss along the way.
Oh, just an intolerable amount of power to this woman.
Yeah, former D1 basketball star, played in the WNBA, and now showing off her power here in WWE with a choke slam to Charlotte.
I'll tell you right now, so many people thought with the lack of resume for Lash Legend, she would be the weak link. Smallest resume, biggest weapon inside War Games. Welcome to a major showcase moment for Lash Legend.
And the Bougie Bully Lash Legend staring across the ring at the Eradicator.
No, thank you. Boom, right across.
Think about the matchup these two could have in the future. And Rhea now with the right hand. Lash with one of her own. And now slugging it out.
Power versus power. Have to give it an edge to Lash Legend, but of course the experience factor majorly in favor of Rhea Bloody Ripley.
So many body punches.
Let's
Now, Rhea lands on her feet, runs into a back elbow.
Crack the smile when he connected
Just
with that
cannot
attack.
take Lash Legend off her feet. Well, staggering her now.
Now, just planting Rhea, stacking her off that power bomb, and then a big pump kick. And Lash into the cover. Hook of the line, and Rhea's got a kick out at 2.
Defensive
Take
instincts
another
need to
look
kick
at
in.
this legendary pump kick right to the jaw of Rhea Ripley. People who followed Lash's career will know she's beaten countless opponents with that. Not tonight, not against Rhea Ripley, but Ripley has been softened up now in a big one.
I mentioned that interview earlier. Lash said tonight is her moment to show the world that she is for real. Rhea Ripley, though, looking for the riptide. Now on Lash Legend, and Nia Jax going to help out her buddy, her newfound friend, Lash Legend.
Experience being a major weakness for Lash Legend at this level. That's why you team up with this fellow superpower, Nia Jax, who has been around the block here many times. Major guiding light now for Lash Legend, and things are starting to really pick up in there.
Yeah, critical moments now. We're in sudden death. This is overtime. First team to the pinfall or submission will win. Charlotte Flair. Up on the shoulders, as is Alexa Bliss. Nia Jax and Lash Legend deposit them into the cage.
Lost their goal because of Lash Legend, and Nia Jax now getting double stacked.
Is it enough? Oh, AJ Lee breaks things up.
These guys feel no love for each other.
AJ Lee took the attention of referee Jessica Carr in the process, saving the match for her team, and it really is balanced on a knife edge now.
And Becky Lynch with a manhandle slam to AJ Lee. That had to feel good for Becky, who now goes into the cover. Oh! Io Sky with a moonsault! And a kick out. Lash Legend also pulling her off the cover.
This is one of the difficulties at this point in the match. To try and get a win, there's almost always somebody on the opposing team there to break up pins and submissions.
Now Lash and Nia working together.
And Kofi Kingston.
Io Sky now caught now. Both women.
Another win for the
Io, military presses here.
So easy when you're that strong.
And now sending Io into her teammate.
Putting the entire locker room on notice.
Game of high-risk balls going on here. And taking full control. Nia Jax, Lash Legend, and the rest of their team have a major upper hand now in War Games.
Uh-oh, Asuka. Asuka has Io in trouble. Kairi Sane gonna climb up to the top. Kairi Sane, top rope. This could do it in this matchup. Kairi gonna fly. Kabuki special
with a chain in hand.
Cover. Boom. Rhea Ripley saving the match.
I mean, that was game over right there. If Rhea Ripley hadn't found the timing and enough left in the tank, take another look at this Kabuki special. What a shot with that chain in hand. Double stack pin, and Ripley just bulldozing over the pin in the nick of time.
And now Becky's team surrounding Rhea Ripley, who's back to her knees. Rhea in deep, deep trouble in a 5-on-1 situation here.
A street beat down, about to meet Rhea Ripley, and now Ripley's scrambling for her life, but it's not an oh!
Oh, goodness, Charlotte saved Rhea Ripley, and a miss now. The miss delivered to Legend.
Friendly fire to Lash Legend, you're right. Charlotte Flair just barged her sometime enemy Rhea Ripley out the way, saving her, and it's cost Lash Legend.
Asuka just misted her own partner.
What a major bonding moment that was for Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley, who did not want to team together at all. That's the moment that Rhea Ripley realizes we are a team, we are a unit, we have to win this thing.
Yeah, wait, they had to sit down a couple of weeks ago. They buried the hatchet, at least for tonight. And now working together with a suplex to Jax. Alexa Bliss now, up on the top rope.
Well, these are the bonds that War Games can give you.
Twisted Bliss by Alexa.
And this match has just turned around in the blink of an eye.
And it all was because Charlotte and Rhea. Oh no! Look at this! AJ Lee!
AJ's not tall enough.
But Rhea Ripley gonna help her out. You know what? It wouldn't be War Games without Io Sky in a trash can. This has become vintage Io Sky. From the top of the War Games cage.
Well, this is about to go viral.
Io Sky! Oh my! Launching herself off the top with a swanton! Becky Lynch can't believe it. And guess what, Wade? Becky Lynch is the only woman standing for her team.
And Becky Lynch ain't going anywhere. There's been tear for, wait a second.
Becky trying to turn her run away to the other side of the ring. Now remember, if Becky escapes here, their team's going to forfeit anyway. So if she gets out of the cage, she loses.
Well, it doesn't look like
take her medicine.
Doesn't look like they can win this match from here anyway. 4 down, it's 5 against 1 here. Becky Lynch had the right idea. Perhaps given up, but not being allowed out.
Trip time. And AJ Lee now into the Black Widow. Becky's felt this before. The Black Widow. Becky taps out. AJ Company win War Games.
Here are your winners by submission, the team of Charlotte Flair, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, and AJ Lee.
But that is just how quickly War Games can do a complete 180 as the celebrations begin here in San Diego from the upper hand. Now with the poison mist pass out of the way, straight into the eyes of the Bougie Bully Lash legend. That was the turning point, and this is the most spectacular moment of the match. Trash can in hand, over the head, and one swanton later, completely dropping the field, and set for one Becky Lynch. And as Becky Lynch tried her best to escape, she was denied, and the rival team teed off at will. One riptide here, followed shortly thereafter by AJ Lee and her Black Widow submission. There's the tap out, there's your victory. War Games is over.
The winning team, AJ, Charlotte, Alexa, Rhea